1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Clay was counting the seconds as he watched the school bus through his windshield. His impatience continued to mount with each Mississippi, until at last the big red stop sign on the side of the bus swung closed and it began trundling forward again. Clay followed in his own car, his frustration only slightly relieved. On this thin and neglected rural lane, the unbroken yellow stripe down the middle of the road meant Clay was not supposed to pass here, even though there was no oncoming traffic. "I'm perfectly calm," Clay told himself while gripping the steering wheel so hard that his knuckles turned white. "This is a minor inconvenience. There's no reason to be upset." The trouble was, he could see perfectly well there was no children on the bus, and yet the damn thing kept stopping every half mile or so. Each time, its stop sign would swing out, its doors would open, and then nothing. No kids got off, no kids got on. Which meant the bus driver was just being a jerk. Clay's mental picture of the driver had steadily grown more insulting, until now he was envisioning a slack-jawed, backwoods tobacco-spitting yokel. So far, the only thing that had stopped Clay from breaking the law and speeding around the bus was imagining the driver with a gloating, toothless grin on his face as he radioed Clay's license number to the local sheriff, who would undoubtedly turn out to be the yokel's brother. But after 3 more pointless stops, Clay finally snapped. Instead of driving on past, he gunned his engine and charged his car onto the shoulder, sending gravel flying when he braked hard next to the open doors of the bus. He was already yelling before he jumped out. "What the hell is wrong with you? Are you being an asshole for fun? You don't even have any kids on..." Clay broke off as he stared up into the bus. Beneath a tattered cap, the driver's eyes were dull, and his papery skin was colorless. It looked like the man had not eaten or slept in years. In the sudden silence, the driver spoke with a voice like a dry wheeze. "You ran over some of them," he declared, sounding more grateful than accusatory. Before Clay could make sense of this, he felt a tug on his leg. Then something grabbed his ankle. As he tried to pull away, he heard angry murmurs pouring out of the doors, and suddenly what felt like hundreds of unseen fingers were clutching at him from all directions. They were tiny fingers, but there were so many of them, and they were so very, very cold. They dragged him up the stairs and onto the bus. "Your turn," said the driver. And with a look of profound relief, he placed his cap on Clay's head and immediately crumbled to a fine dust. The view looks peaceful enough from my office window. Ignoring the low-hanging gray clouds filled with hidden nightmares, I try to imagine it's just a normal rainy day. The only inconvenience facing Fairfield Elementary is the students will have to stay inside for recess. I imagine the bell ringing at 3:15 and the kids spilling through the doors and the sun returning tomorrow. But none of that will happen. No, everyone currently inside the building will remain here. Kindergarten through 6th grade, including teachers and assorted staff. All of us safe but trapped, stuck in a fortress of white cinder blocks and linoleum. Tapping an unlit cigarette on the armrest of my chair, I stare across the street at a row of modest houses. I could find more cigarettes over there, but even if I could make it, I doubt I'd like what else I found. Those houses went dark weeks ago. I'd probably be dead by now too, if I'd been at home when the emergency news bulletin started. "The gray clouds have covered the world," they said. "Anyone caught in the open is being killed. Remain indoors or seek shelter immediately. We have reports of cars being ripped open like tin cans, so we must advise against using vehicles." Then came static. The radios, televisions, and phones have been silent ever since. At home, I had never looked in my pantry and calculated how long the food would last if I couldn't leave. Who keeps enough for a siege? Luckily, the school had more stocks, but rationing only went so far. Once we began running low, it was Mr. Bartley, the janitor, who volunteered to run across the street to forage. "I'll make it," he said. "It's only the length of a football field." I was his boss, not his commanding officer, so over my objections, he went. He'd gone 20 feet when a snake-like shape uncoiled from the clouds. It stayed for a moment as its lowest segment hardened into a spear, then shot straight down, skewering Bartley from the top of his head to his groin before yanking him into the clouds. I'm still shuddering at the memory when I hear a soft knock on my door. As smoothly as I can, I hide my cigarette while turning to stand up. "Hello?" says Abby Harrison. "Miss Dobbs said it was our class's turn to volunteer." Like most kids, Abby probably equates being in the principal's office with being in trouble. So I give the quaking girl a big, friendly smile. "Come in, Abby." "Yes, we need your help." "You do?" "Well, me and Miss Randall." "Oh," she says, brightening. "The lunch lady? Are we going to eat today?" I step around the desk to give her a pat on the head, and my smile doesn't falter until my hand moves down to her tiny, fragile neck. "Yes," I tell her. "I'm afraid we are." It's 7:31 p.m., and I'm the last person in the office. But instead of leaving, I'm standing in front of the elevator with a box of paperclips in my hand. "Ready to go?" asks Ray. He's keeping the elevator door open for me. Behind him are Megan, Carla, and Marcos, all of whom look tired from working so late. The first time this happened, I opened my mouth to say yes. Then I suddenly changed my answer as I remembered my resolution to lose a few pounds. Back then I said, "Thanks, but I'll take the stairs." This time, I don't say anything. "Suit yourself," Ray says anyway, as if I had spoken. He releases the door, but before it can close, I toss in the box. It lands on its corner and the lid pops off, scattering its contents like a paperclip grenade. Then the door slides shut, and I'm alone again. No one in the elevator thought this was weird. In fact, they didn't even notice. I've done this little experiment many, many times, so I'm not surprised they didn't react. I'm also not surprised to look over and see the box of paperclips back on my desk, as if I'd never touched it. My other experiments end the same way. I've blocked the doors, I've shouted and begged, and I've grabbed at Ray's arms, but nothing makes any lasting difference. My coworkers never respond, and everything resets. I always end up alone in the office, at least until the elevator reappears and Ray asks if I'm ready to go. I've gotten tired of experimenting, but there isn't much else to do around here. The phones and radios and fire alarms don't work. All the computers are frozen. I found a cheap romance novel hidden in Megan's bottom drawer, but I know how it ends. I ought to. I've only read it 30 times. Even if I actually do take the stairwell, it's like walking into an MC Escher print. However many flights I descend or ascend, every door brings me right back here to the 40th floor. Of course, I could always join my coworkers in the elevator. I remember when I was a kid, I was feeling morbidly curious, so I looked up elevator accidents and found that they were incredibly rare. Elevators are probably the safest method of transportation in the world, since they basically cannot just go crashing into the ground. You're about 1,000 times more likely to die on a staircase. But even I know that. I also know this. Each time the elevator leaves, if I put my ear to the door, I can hear the receding screams of my coworkers echoing back up the shaft. And that's why it's always 7:31 p.m. Because I'm supposed to be with them. Looking up from my paperclip box, I see the elevator has returned. "Ready to go?" asks Ray. Eventually, I know I'll say yes.
You're not afraid?